If you have a drawer of old pennies sitting in a kitchen cabinet, a coffee can tucked into a garage drawer, or a forgotten coin album collecting dust in a closet, what I'm about to share may change the way you look at every single copper coin you've ever touched, because hidden among the billions of ordinary 1-cent pieces struck in America, there exists a version of the 1973 Lincoln cent that has stunned seasoned collectors, shaken auction rooms, and ignited the kind of frenzy that turns pocket change into life-altering money. We're talking about a coin that, under the right conditions, has been whispered about in connection with values approaching $3 million. $3 million a broken bar for a penny. It sounds impossible, it sounds exaggerated, it sounds like one of those stories you hear at a flea market from a man who swears his uncle once found a treasure in a shoebox. But in the world of rare coin collecting, impossibility is often the first sign that you should look closer. The 1973 Lincoln cent was struck at the Denver Mint during the time when billions of pennies were produced for circulation. America was in the early 1970s, inflation was climbing, and copper coins were still made primarily of 95% copper. Most of those coins are worth exactly 1 cent today. Maybe 2 or 3 cents for their copper content. Nothing glamorous, nothing life-changing, and yet, within that sea of ordinary cents, a microscopic fraction stands apart. To understand why, we need to step back and appreciate the legacy of the Lincoln cent itself. Introduced in 1909 to honor President Abraham Lincoln, the coin has long been a symbol of American resilience. Designed by Victor David Brenner, Lincoln's portrait has endured for over a century. Generations have held it, spent it, saved it. But collectors know something the average spender does not. Sometimes, the smallest variations in minting can create astronomical differences in value. In 1973, the Denver Mint struck over 3.5 billion Lincoln cents. Think about that number. Billions. That's why most people assume there is no way a 1973 penny could ever be rare, and in general, they're right. Most are common, but the coin that commands headlines and eye-watering valuations is not the ordinary 1973 It is the extraordinary error specimen. Imagine a penny struck on the wrong plankett. Imagine a coin that escaped quality control with a dramatic minting error, or perhaps a double die, perhaps struck on a bronze-clad steel experimental plankett, perhaps featuring an off-metal composition that was never meant to exist in circulation. These are not myths. The U.S. Mint has a long, documented history of transitional errors and wrong plankett strikes slipping into the public. Now here's where the story becomes electric. In the early 1970s, the Mint was experimenting with different metallic compositions as copper prices rose. Officially, the composition change didn't happen until 1982, but internal testing and plankett transitions can lead to the accidental striking of coins on leftover or experimental blanks. When that happens, the result can be a one-of-a-kind anomaly, and in the rare coin market, one-of-a-kind is a phrase that moves markets. There are documented cases of Lincoln cents from other years, like the famous 1943 bronze cent selling for over $1 million because they were struck on the wrong metal. Collectors understand the psychology. Rarity plus authenticity plus demand equals explosive value. So what about the 1973 In elite numismatic circles, a confirmed, authenticated, dramatic 1973 error, especially one involving a wrong metal composition or a spectacular double dia, would represent an almost mythical convergence of rarity and historical intrigue. If such a coin were discovered in pristine condition, graded at the highest levels by professional services like PCGS or NGC, the bidding war could be extraordinary. And that is where the $3 million figure enters the conversation. Now, let's pause for a second. Before you sprint to your coin jar, take a breath. Not every 1973 penny is worth more than a cent. In fact, the overwhelming majority are worth exactly that. But here's the question that should make your heart beat a little faster. How do you know yours isn't the one? Most people don't look, they assume, they dismiss, they pour their coins into Coinstar machines and walk away. But you're still here, you're watching, you're listening, and that means you're not most people. A genuine high-value 1973 cent would likely display unusual characteristics. The weight might differ from the standard 3.11 grams for a bronze cent. The color might appear off a slightly silvery if struck on the wrong metal. The strike might show dramatic doubling in the date or lettering. There could be alignment anomalies or other minting irregularities. Here's where urgency enters the picture. If such a coin exists in private hands and the owner doesn't recognize it, it could be spent accidentally, it could be lost, it could be sitting in a child's piggy bank right now, and once it re-enters circulation unnoticed, the trail goes cold. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually examined a penny under magnification? Be honest. Most of us don't. We glance at the date, maybe, and toss it aside. But collectors who've built generational wealth in this hobby will tell you that fortunes are made by those who pay attention to details others ignore. Picture this scenario. A retired couple cleaning out their attic finds an old bank roll of pennies from the 1970s. They almost deposit it at the bank, but curiosity gets the better of them. They examine the coins one by one, and then they notice something strange about a 1973 cent. It looks lighter, it feels different, it weighs less than it should. They send it for authentication. Weeks later, the grading results confirm a rare off-metal strike in near-perfect condition. The auction catalog description reads like poetry. Bidders from around the country and perhaps around the world prepare to compete. The opening bid shocks observers. The final hammer price climbs past expectations. Headlines follow. $3 million, for a penny that once could have bought a stick of gum. It sounds cinematic, doesn't it? Almost unbelievable. And yet, history shows us that rare coins have shattered records time and time again. When collectors perceive a once-in-a-generation opportunity, rational ceilings evaporate. Now here's the part most people don't consider. Condition is everything. Even if you were fortunate enough to possess a rare 1973 error, its value depends heavily on preservation. A coin graded MS67 or higher commands exponentially more than one in circulated condition. The difference between a lightly worn coin and a pristine specimen can mean hundreds of thousands or sometimes millions of dollars. That's why professionals emphasize proper handling. Never clean a coin, never polish it. Cleaning can destroy original surfaces and erase significant value instantly. If you suspect you have something special, handle it by the edges, store it safely, and consult a reputable grading service. Let's inject a quick reality check, because staying grounded is part of staying profitable. The odds of finding a multi-million-dollar coin are extremely low. This is not a lottery ticket strategy, it's a disciplined, informed approach to asset discovery. But here's the paradox. The odds are low a broken bar, yet someone, somewhere, eventually finds the coin. Why not you? This is where mindset becomes critical. Wealth often hides in plain sight. The difference between those who recognize it and those who overlook it comes down to awareness and action. If you're between 30 and 65, you likely remember handling copper pennies daily before digital payments took over. You may have inherited jars from parents or grandparents. You may have rolls tucked away from decades ago. These coins are not just currency, they're historical artifacts. And history, when rare enough, commands premiums beyond imagination. Imagine transforming a forgotten collection into the down payment on a dream home. Imagine funding retirement without anxiety. Imagine telling your family that the penny everyone ignored turned out to be the cornerstone of financial freedom. It's almost poetic, isn't it? The smallest denomination delivering the largest reward. But before excitement turns into assumption, remember the importance of verification. Seek experts. Use certified scales accurate to hundredths of a gram. Compare your coin against documented error varieties. Knowledge is your shield against both false hope and missed opportunity. And here's a subtle but powerful truth. Even if you never uncover a $3 million rarity, developing the habit of examining assets closely can sharpen your financial instincts in every area of life. So tonight, when you get home, open that drawer, pour those pennies onto a table, listen to the metallic cascade, separate the 1973 D coins, examine them carefully under good lighting, weigh them, look for anomalies, feel the thrill of possibility, but anchor it in discipline, because somewhere in America, perhaps right now, an extraordinary 1973 D Lincoln cent is waiting to be recognized. The question isn't whether such coins can command astonishing sums. History has proven they can. The real question is this: will you be the person who takes the time to look closely enough to find it? Your fortune might not arrive in a briefcase. It might not come through a stock tip or a lottery ticket. It might already be in your pocket, and that possibility alone is worth more than a cent. In 1980, millions of Americans carried a small copper coin in their pockets without a second thought. It passed across diner counters, disappeared into soda machines, and rattled in ashtrays on kitchen tables. Most of those coins were ordinary, but hidden among them quietly, almost invisibly, was a Lincoln cent with no mint mark that today is whispered about in collector circles with a single, electrifying number attached to it: $2.8 million. Yes, $2.8 million, for a penny. Before you laugh and say, "That's impossible," let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly looked at the pennies sitting in your drawer? Not glanced, not assumed. Looked, because the 1980 Lincoln 1-cent coin without a mint mark represents something far greater than copper and zinc. It represents overlook value. It represents the fortune that hides in plain sight. The story begins with the enduring face of Abraham Lincoln, first placed on the cent in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of his birth. The Lincoln cent became an American constant, surviving world wars, inflation, recessions, and the rise of digital money. By 1980, the designa featuring Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse had become so familiar that few people noticed the details anymore. And that is precisely why rare variations can slip past unnoticed. In 1980, the United States Mint struck Lincoln cents at multiple facilities, including the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint. Coins struck in Philadelphia traditionally carried no mint mark during that era, while Denver coins displayed a D. To the average person, that missing mint mark means nothing. To a seasoned collector, it can mean everything. But here is where the narrative shifts. Most 1980 cents without a mint mark are common. They were struck in enormous quantities in Philadelphia. So how could one be worth millions? The answer lies not in the absence of a mint mark alone, but in condition, rarity within rarity, and the microscopic anomalies that separate the ordinary from the extraordinary. In the coin market, value is a layered concept. It is about scarcity. It is about preservation, and sometimes, it is about error. Imagine a 1980 no mint mark Lincoln cent struck with razor-sharp detail, blazing original luster, and flawless surface as graded at the absolute pinnacle of the Sheldon scale. We are talking about a coin preserved in near miraculous condition, untouched by circulation, free from scratches, nicks, or dulling. A coin that somehow escaped the chaos of commerce for more than 4 decades. Now imagine that same coin exhibiting a rare die anomaly, perhaps a dramatic double die feature visible in Lincoln's profile or in the lettering of Liberty and In God We Trust, or an extraordinary strike characteristic that makes it one of a kind among certified examples. Suddenly, we are no longer discussing pocket change. We are discussing the trophy coin. High-end collectors and investors, really compete fiercely for singular pieces. The kind of individuals who diversify portfolios not just with real estate or stocks, but with tangible historical artifacts. When a coin is certified by top grading services such as Professional Coin Grading Service or Numismatic Guarantee Company at an elite grade, population reports become critical. If there is only one example at that grade, a broken bar, the bidding can escalate into territory that sounds absurd to the average person. $2.8 million does not come from copper content. It comes from competition. It comes from ego. It comes from scarcity combined with demand. And here is where fear enters the equation, because what if one of those coins is sitting in your home right now? What if it isn't a Jordan Lagurji, a broken bar tucked into an old bank envelope, a broken bar sealed inside a forgotten proof set box, a broken bar, or resting quietly in a drawer that hasn't been opened in years? The fear is not that you don't have it. The fear is that you might have had a broken bar and spent it. That is why awareness matters. The 1980 Lincoln cent is composed primarily of copper, though by 1982 the mint would transition to a zinc core. The 1980 issue still carries that heavier copper composition, giving it a distinct weight and sound. If you hold one and drop it gently on a wooden surface, it produces a sharper ring compared to later zinc cents. Small detail, big difference. Collectors examine the surface under magnification, looking for crispness in Lincoln's hair, clarity in the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, and perfection in the fields. A coin graded MS-68 or MS-69 is not just rare, it is microscopic perfection. And here is the humorous twist: most of us treat pennies like lint. We toss them in tip jars, we ignore them in parking lots. Some people literally leave them on the ground because it's only a penny. Imagine explaining to your future self that you stepped over a potential multi-million-dollar asset because bending down felt inconvenient. History has shown time and again that overlooked coins can explode in value when collectors recognize extreme rarity at the highest certified grades. Auction houses have witnessed bidding wars that defy logic. Wealthy buyers see more than a coin, they see exclusivity, and exclusivity sells. But let's be clear and authoritative here, not every 1980 no-mint mark penny is worth millions. In circulated condition, most are worth only a few cents above face value. Even in uncirculated condition, many trade for modest premiums. The million-dollar tier belongs to the absolute finest known example s, the coins that combine elite preservation, potential rare die characteristics, and verified certification from top-tier grading authorities. So how do you know if yours has potential? First, examine the mint mark area carefully. A true Philadelphia strike from 1980 will have no mint mark beneath the date. If you see a D, it was struck in Denver. If you see damage or a suspicious surface where a mint mark might have been removed, that drastically reduces value. Authenticity is everything. Second, study the coin under magnification. Look for doubling in the date, in Liberty, or in Lincoln's features. Look for unusual strike strength or anomalies that stand out from normal examples. If you are unsure, do not clean the coin. Cleaning destroys value instantly. Yes, instantly. A coin that could have commanded thousands or more can drop to a fraction of that if its original surfaces are altered. The numismatic market values originality above shine. Remember that. Third, consider professional grading. Submitting a coin to a reputable grading service establishes authenticity and condition. Without certification, extraordinary claims will not be taken seriously in high-end markets. Now let's pause for a moment. Picture your life if you discovered a coin certified at the top of the population report, or recognized as the finest known 1980 no-mint mark Lincoln cent with a dramatic, documented die error. Picture the auction listing, the spotlight photography, the anticipation building among bidders across the country. The auctioneer's voice rises, the numbers climb. 1 million, 1.5, 2 million, $2.8 million. The hammer falls. In that instant, a coin once dismissed as spare change transforms into generational wealth. This is not fantasy thinking. This is how elite collectibles operate. Art, rare cars, vintage watches, and yes, coins have crossed into multi-million-dollar territory when rarity and demand converge. But here's the cliffhanger that keeps collectors awake at night. population reports change. A coin believed to be unique today may face competition tomorrow if another example surfaces. Timing matters. Market cycles matter. Attention matters. Right now, as awareness of high-grade modern coins grows, collectors are re-examining pieces once considered too recent to matter. The 1980 Lincoln cent sits at an interesting intersection: old enough to be scarce and pristine condition, modern enough that many were mishandled. That combination fuels opportunity. If you are between 30 and 65, you are positioned at a powerful crossroads. You understand both the analog past and the digital present. You know what it feels like to handle physical cash daily. And you also recognize the growing appeal of tangible assets in uncertain economic times. Coins are history you can hold. They are finite. They cannot be printed on demand once mintage is complete. And condition rarity. A coin surviving in immaculate state has become scarcer every year. So here is the urgency. Do not assume your pennies are worthless. Do not dismiss the coffee can of change inherited from a relative. Do not overlook that roll of 1980 cents sitting quietly in storage. Examine them, research them, protect them, because wealth does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it hides behind a humble portrait of Abraham Lincoln, waiting for someone with curiosity and courage to notice. And if you are still skeptical, ask yourself this: how many life-changing discoveries began with someone deciding to take a closer look? The 1980 no-mint mark Lincoln cent is more than a coin. It is a reminder that value is often invisible until recognized. It challenges us to see differently, to question assumptions, to act before opportunity slips away. Somewhere in America, a penny worth a fortune may still be waiting to be found. The only question is whether it will be you who finds it or someone else who beat you to it. So tonight, before you scroll past another distraction, before you dismiss another coin as insignificant, take a moment, open that drawer, pour out that jar, hold each 1980 Lincoln cent under the light. Look at the date, look at the mint mark area, look closely, because the next time someone says, "It's just a penny," you might smile, knowing that sometimes, just sometimes, a single cent can rewrite a lifetime. Imagine holding 1 cent in your hand that could change your financial future. It sounds impossible, almost ridiculous. After all, it's just a penny. But history has a way of rewarding the observant, the patient, and the prepared. And the 1992 Lincoln cent has become one of the most talked about modern rarities in American coin collecting. On its face, the coin bears the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, a design first introduced in 1909. On the reverse in 1992, two simple wheat-style words had long since been replaced by the Lincoln Memorial design, framing the inscription United States of America and the denomination 1 cent. And just beneath the date, a tiny letter, D. That small mint mark tells us the coin was struck at the Denver facility of the United States Mint. Billions were produced. Billions. So how could one possibly be worth more than your house? Here's where the story shifts. In the early 1990s, the Mint was preparing to transition to a subtle redesign of the reverse lettering spacing. Specifically, the distance between the letters A and M in the word America. On most 1992 pennies, those two letters are clearly separated. There's a visible gap, but on a tiny number of coins struck in Denver that year, the letters are almost touching, nearly fused together. This variety is known among collectors as the close AM. That small difference is so small you might need magnification to see it. It changed everything. For years, the close AM was believed to exist only on proof coins from 1992. Proof coins are specially struck for collectors. They are not supposed to appear in everyday pocket change. And yet, somehow, a small number of circulation strike 1992 pennies were minted using proof reverse dies. Whether through die mix-ups, transitional production errors, or simple human oversight, these coins escaped into the wild. And that's where the excitement begins. Picture someone in the late 1990s casually sorting through change. A routine glance, a moment of curiosity, a magnifying glass, and suddenly a broken bar. The letters A and M look too close, too tight. The realization sets in, this isn't normal. When authenticated, these 1992D close AM pennies began commanding astonishing prices at auction, not hundreds of dollars, not even just thousands. In top condition, certified examples have sold for tens of thousands of dollars. High-grade specimens, especially those in near-perfect mint state, have crossed well into five figures. Now let's pause for a second. If you're watching this, you might be thinking, the broken bar, are you telling me a penny from 1992 could make me rich? Here's the truth, and it's important. While headlines and online rumors sometimes throw around multi-million-dollar figures, there is no verified public sale of a 1992D Lincoln Cent for $2.5 million. That number belongs more to internet fantasy than documented auction reality. The highest confirmed sales for the 1992D close AM are in the tens of thousands of dollars range, depending heavily on condition and certification. But before you click away, consider this. Even a coin worth $20,000 or $30,000 began as 1 cent. 1 cent. That transformation from pocket change to life-altering asset is what makes this story powerful, because the value isn't magic, it's mathematics. Scarcity multiplied by demand, amplified by condition, and validated by professional grading. Let's talk scarcity. Only a tiny number of 1992D close AM cents have ever been confirmed. Estimates vary, but compared to the billions struck that year, we're talking about a microscopic survival rate. That rarity creates tension in the marketplace. Collectors compete, investors watch. Prices climb, then comes condition. A worn example discovered in circulation may bring thousands, but a coin preserved in brilliant, uncirculated condition, free of scratches, spots, and handling marks, can command dramatically more. In numismatics, condition is king. A difference of a single grade point can mean thousands of dollars. Now imagine the emotional roller coaster, the fear of having spent one unknowingly, the excitement of checking every jar of change in the house, the urgency of acting before someone else finds one first. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly examined your pennies? Most people never do. We overlook them because they feel insignificant, but that mindset is precisely why rare varieties can hide in plain sight for years. The 1992D close AM wasn't discovered immediately after minting. It took time, it took awareness, it took someone willing to look closer. And here's where the second act of our story deepens. Suppose you find a 1992D penny, you grab a magnifier, you examine the word America. If the A and M are clearly separated, it's the common variety, worth face value, maybe a few cents in bulk copper speculation. But if those letters are nearly touching, if the bases of the A and M are aligned and the spacing is tight, you may be looking at something extraordinary. But don't rush to sell it online in a blurry photo listing. Professional authentication is critical. Reputable grading services examine the coin under controlled conditions, confirm the variety, assign a grade, and encapsulate it in a tamper-evident holder. That certification transforms suspicion into verified rarity, and verified rarity is what serious buyers pay for. Now here's a pattern interrupt for you. If pennies were worthless, banks wouldn't count them so carefully, would they? We laugh, but attention to detail is where fortunes are found. The psychology of coin collecting plays a major role here. For collectors aged 30 to 65, especially those who grew up handling these coins daily, there's nostalgia attached to the Lincoln Cent. It's a symbol of American continuity, a coin that has survived wars, recessions, technological revolutions. Owning a rare variety connects the collector to a tangible moment in minting history, a production anomaly frozen in copper. And as inflation erodes purchasing power and markets fluctuate, tangible assets gain appeal. Rare coins are portable, recognized globally, finite. They cannot be printed at will. But let's address the elephant in the room. Could a 1992D penny ever reach into the millions? In today's verified market environment, that would require unprecedented demand, elite condition, and extraordinary collector competition. While some legendary U.S. coins like certain early American gold pieces have crossed multi-million-dollar thresholds, the 1992D close AM remains in the five-figure category based on documented sales. And yet markets evolve. The coin world has seen dramatic price growth when new collectors enter, when registry competition intensifies, and when media attention spotlights specific varieties. A record-setting sale can reset expectations overnight. That possibility, however remote, is what fuels dreams. But dreams without action are just entertainment. So here's your moment of decision. Will you ignore the change in your drawer, or will you take 15 minutes this week to examine it carefully? The third act of this story isn't about speculation, it's about empowerment. Start with knowledge. Learn the diagnostics of the 1992D close AM. Study clear comparison images from reputable numismatic sources. Invest in a simple 10x loop. Separate your 1992D pennies. Examine spacing. Check for signs of alteration, because yes, counterfeiters sometimes attempt to modify coins to mimic rarities. Be methodical, be patient, and if you believe you've found one, resist the temptation to clean it. Cleaning destroys value instantly. Leave it exactly as it is and submit it to a respected grading service. Imagine email notification. Your coin has been authenticated, the variety confirmed, the grade higher than you expected. Suddenly, what sat unnoticed for decades becomes an asset. Excitement surges, but so does responsibility. Do you consign it to auction? Hold it as a long-term store of value? Negotiate privately with the collector seeking to complete a registry set? These decisions require strategy, not emotion, because wealth isn't created by luck alone, it's secured by informed action. The 1992D close AM Lincoln cent teaches a powerful lesson. Value hides in details. Opportunity rewards attention, and sometimes, the smallest objects carry the greatest potential. No. The average 1992D penny will not fund a mansion, and no verified sale supports a $2.5 million market price today. But the existence of even a handful worth tens of thousands proves something profound. Extraordinary value can exist inside ordinary appearances. So tonight, before you dismiss the change in your pocket, pause. Ask yourself, what if one overlooked detail could alter your financial trajectory? What if the coin you've ignored for years carries a story the market is willing to reward? History shows that rare coins surface in the most unexpected places: piggy banks, inherited jars, estate collections, forgotten drawers. The question is not whether they exist, the question is whether you will look, because somewhere, right now, a 1992D close AM penny is still waiting to be discovered. And it only takes one. Before you dismiss that small copper penny sitting in a jar, let me ask you something. What if a single cent adjust only could change the direction of your financial future? What if the 1995 Lincoln 1 cent with no mint mark in your drawer held a secret most Americans overlook every single day? And what if the difference between pocket change and life-changing money came down to knowing exactly what to look for? For millions of Americans between 30 and 65, coins are more than metal. They are memory, legacy, and sometimes opportunity. The 1995 Lincoln cent without a mint mark appears ordinary at first glance. On the front, the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial design that defined generations of American coinage. No flashy commemorative artwork, no silver, no gold, just copper-plated zinc. Simple, quiet, unassuming, and that is exactly why it hides in plain sight. In 1995, the United States Mint produced billions of Lincoln cents. The vast majority came from Philadelphia, and coins from that facility traditionally carried no mint mark at all. So a 1995 penny with no mint mark is not rare by default. In fact, most of them are worth exactly 1 cent. Pause for a second. If most are worth 1 cent a broken bar, why do rumors circulate online claiming values in the millions and numbers like $2.2 million attached to this humble coin? Because in coin collecting, condition and era change everything. Let's step into the first layer of reality. A typical 1995 no mint mark Lincoln cent in circulated condition, meaning it has lived its life passing through registers, vending machines, and pockets, is worth face value 1 cent, maybe 2 cents in bulk copper trade. That's the calm truth. But now comes the shift. Within that same year exists a famous variety, the 1995 double die obverse. This is not a minor scratch. This is a dramatic doubling visible in the inscriptions "Liberty" and "In God We Trust." When magnified, the letters appear slightly shadowed, as if printed twice. This was a legitimate mint error, and collectors immediately took notice. Suddenly, a 1 cent coin could command hundreds, then thousands. High-grade examples of the 1995 double die obverse have sold for well over $1,000, and pristine certified specimens can bring several $1,000s depending on market demand. Not millions, but enough to make anyone look twice at their change. Now here's where excitement meets discipline. The internet has a habit of inflating stories. A headline claiming a penny is worth $2.2 million spreads faster than a sober appraisal. Fear of missing out kicks in. People rush to check jars, piggy banks, inherited collections, and that emotional surge, hope mixed with urgency, is powerful. But wealth is built on knowledge, not hype. If a 1995 no mint mark penny were truly worth $2.2 million, it would require something extraordinary, perhaps a unique minting error never before recorded, a wrong planchet strike, or a one-of-a-kind anomaly verified by top grading services. As of today, no standard 1995 Lincoln cent without an extraordinary error has reached anything close to that figure. And that's not bad news, because real opportunity still exists. Act 2 of this story is about awareness. Most Americans underestimate the power of condition. A coin graded MS67 or higher, meaning near flawless, can multiply in value compared to a circulated piece. That same 1995 cent in brilliant, untouched condition, carefully preserved from the day it left the mint, can sell for significantly more than face value. Add a recognized error like the double die, and the multiplier grows again. Here's the critical moment. Are you checking your coins with intention, or with assumption? Take a magnifying glass, examine the date, study the lettering, look for doubling, inspect the surface for original luster, the cartwheel shine that rotates under light. If your coin looks dull and worn, expectations should be modest. If it gleams like it just left the press, your curiosity should rise. And here's a humorous reset for you. If your penny looks like it survived 3 decades inside a washing machine, it probably isn't retiring you early. But if it doesn't, a broken bar, keep watching, because grading is the bridge between speculation and market value. Professional certification by reputable third-party grading services determines authenticity and condition. Without that certification, buyers remain cautious. With it, confidence rises, and so does price potential. This brings us to the emotional crossroads many viewers face. You may be sitting on inherited coins from parents or grandparents. You may have jars collected over decades. You may even have rolls of uncirculated cents tucked away since the 1990s. The question is no longer, is this worth $2.2 million? The real question is, could I be overlooking a legitimate collector's piece? That shift from fantasy to informed possibility is empowering. In Act 3, the story becomes personal. Imagine discovering a 1995 double die in high grade. Imagine sending it for certification. Weeks pass. Anticipation builds. The slab arrives in the mail, sealed, graded, authenticated. The market confirms its value in the thousands. Is that millions? Number. But is it a meaningful financial gain from a 1-cent coin? Absolutely. And that mindset to turning overlooked details into opportunity is how collectors build wealth steadily over time. Because here's the secret seasoned collectors understand: it's rarely one coin worth millions. It's knowledge applied consistently. It's spotting errors others miss. It's preserving condition. It's understanding supply and demand. It's timing the market. It's building relationships with reputable dealers and auction houses. Fear says, what if I miss the $1 million penny? Wisdom says, what if I ignore $1,000 one? There is urgency, but it is the urgency of education, not panic. The 1995 no-mint mark Lincoln cent teaches a powerful lesson. Billions were made. Most are common. A few are special. The difference lies in microscopic detail. That principle applies not only to coins but to opportunity itself. So what should you do right now? First, gather your 1995 pennies. Separate those in excellent condition. Second, inspect carefully for doubling on the obverse lettering. Third, avoid cleaning the coin under any circumstances. Cleaning destroys value instantly. Fourth, consider professional grading if the coin appears uncirculated or displays clear doubling. And finally, approach claims of $1 million valuations with calm skepticism. Extraordinary prices are rare and documented through major auctions. They leave public records. They create headlines backed by verifiable data. If you ever do encounter a truly unique heir or a one never recorded, then yes, the sky becomes the limit. But those discoveries are once-in-a-generation events. Here's the cliffhanger most people never consider. What if the real fortune in your possession isn't a single coin, but a collection built methodically from knowledge starting today? 30 years from now, today's common coins could become tomorrow's scarce survivors in pristine condition. The collectors who win are the ones who start paying attention before the crowd does. That penny in your hand represents more than currency. It represents awareness. It represents the discipline to separate myth from market reality. It represents the decision to educate yourself instead of chasing viral numbers. And education is the only asset that compounds without limit. So yes, check your 1995 no-mint mark Lincoln cent. Examine it carefully. Respect the possibility, but anchor yourself in truth. A coin's value is determined by rarity, demand, and condition and not headlines. Because the most dangerous mistake isn't missing a mythical $2.2 million penny, it's ignoring the real, attainable opportunities sitting quietly in your change. Now look again at that small copper disc. Turn it under the light. Study Lincoln's profile. Examine the letters. Ask yourself one final question. If others are overlooking the details of broken bar, will you? Your journey into coin wealth doesn't begin with hype. It begins with 1 cent and the decision to truly see it. History has proven again and again that seemingly common coins have transformed into life-changing assets because of one overlooked detail, a small variation, a rare error, a microscopic anomaly. And in the world of coin collecting, those details can mean the difference between 1 cent and a multi-million-dollar auction result. The year 2000 marked the beginning of a new millennium. The country was buzzing with anticipation, uncertainty, and technological fear. Remember Y2K? People stocked water, batteries, canned food. Meanwhile, the United States Mint continued striking billions of Lincoln cents. Most of them were business strikes produced for everyday circulation. Many bore mint marks, D for Denver, some had S for San Francisco proof issues. And then there were those without a mint mark, A struck at the Philadelphia Mint, where traditionally no mint mark was used on Lincoln cents intended for circulation. But here's where the story becomes fascinating. In a sea of billions of ordinary 2000 pennies, the rarest and most valuable examples are not ordinary at all. They are defined by condition, by error, by precision, and sometimes by a production anomaly so rare that only a handful are known to exist. A coin that appears identical to the one in your pocket could, under magnification and expert evaluation, reveal itself to be a once-in-a-generation discovery. Picture this. A pristine 2000 Lincoln cent, No mint mark, preserved in flawless mint state condition, not just shiny, not just red, but graded at the absolute top of the scale. MS-78 perfection, nearly impossible for a circulation strike. Now add something even rarer, a dramatic mint error, perhaps an off-center strike, a double ISO bolded date appears shadowed and sculptural, or a wrong plan kit anomaly that slipped through quality control at the dawn of the millennium. Suddenly, we are no longer talking about a penny, we are talking about a trophy coin. In the rare coin market, rarity combined with condition creates explosive value. Collectors are not just buying metal, they are buying uniqueness, they are buying the story, they are buying exclusivity. When two wealthy collectors compete for a coin that may be the finest known example, price becomes secondary, emotion takes over, pride takes over, legacy takes over, and that is how a coin with a face value of 1 cent can escalate into a 7-figure auction headline. Now let's pause for a moment. If you have drawers of pennies stored away, and most Americans over 30 do, when was the last time you actually looked at them carefully, not glanced, looked, under magnification, in proper lighting? Because here is a reality most people overlook. Rare coins are not always discovered by professionals, they are often found by ordinary individuals who took the time to examine what they already owned. The 2000 no mint mark Lincoln cent features the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, a design introduced in 1909. On the reverse, for that year, the Lincoln Memorial still stands, a design that defined the cent for decades before it was replaced in 2009. Billions were struck, but perfection, dramatic error, exceptional preservation, those are scarce. And scarcity is power. Let me ask you something. What would you do if you discovered that a coin you've had for 20 years could pay off your mortgage, fund your retirement, secure your children's future? Would you hesitate, or would you act immediately? Because here's where urgency enters the picture. The rare coin market is not static. High-end collectors are actively searching for top population coins. Auction houses are constantly seeking headline-grabbing pieces. Prices rise when demand outpaces supply, and in the case of ultra-high-grade or rarer 2000 Lincoln cents, supply is microscopic. There have been documented instances in numismatic history where modern coins, initially ignored, later exploded in value because only a handful survived in pristine condition. Think about that, survival. It's not just about how many were made, it's about how many remained perfect. Most 2000 pennies entered circulation immediately. They were tossed into pockets, fed into vending machines, scratched, dulled, damaged. Very few were preserved in immaculate condition from the moment they were struck. Even fewer were stored in controlled environments, untouched by fingerprints, moisture, or friction. Now add the possibility of a major mint error, a double die so strong it catches the eye without magnification, a broad strike that escaped the collar, a rare transitional composition anomaly. These events are statistical outliers, they are accidents. And accidents, in coin collecting, can be worth fortunes. But here's the twist, and stay with me. Not every 2000 no mint mark penny is valuable. In fact, most are worth exactly 1 cent. This is where knowledge becomes your greatest asset. Blindly assuming value is dangerous, but ignoring potential value is even more dangerous. The difference lies in authentication and grading. Professional grading services evaluate coins on a strict numerical scale. A jump from MS-65 to MS-67 can multiply value dramatically. A perfect MS-70 example, that is where the conversation enters elite territory. Combine perfection with rarity, and you create auction energy that drives headlines. Imagine two collectors seated across a bidding floor. Both understand that the coin in front of them may be the finest known 2000 no mint mark Lincoln cent in existence. Both know that once it sells, another may not appear for years, perhaps decades. Do you think they will argue over a few $1,000s, or will competitive instinct push the number higher and higher? This is how modern coins shock the world. And let's talk about psychology for a moment. Many people over 30 remember handling pennies daily. They remember buying candy for a handful of cents, gas under $2. Life felt different. There is nostalgia attached to coins from that era. Emotional attachment amplifies value in subtle ways. Collectors of the future will look back at early millennium coinage as a symbolic marker of transition, a pre-digital saturation, pre-contactless payments dominating daily life. Physical currency is slowly fading from daily use, and when something disappears from everyday life, pristine survivors become artifacts. Let me interrupt your thoughts with a simple question. When was the last time you paid for something entirely in pennies? Exactly. That era is slipping away. As society moves toward digital transactions, tangible currency becomes historical. The best preserved examples become museum-level collectibles, and the 2000 Lincoln cent represents the dawn of a new century, a symbolic turning point. Now imagine discovering that your coin, the one sitting quietly in storage, is not only rare but authenticated as one of the finest known examples. The grading label confirms it. The population report shows only one or two in existence at that level. Suddenly, collectors begin making private offers. Auction houses call. Media outlets show interest. $2 million is not just a number. It is financial freedom. It is leverage. It is transformation. But here's the cliffhanger, and it's critical. How many people have already spent a potential fortune without ever knowing it? How many rare coins have passed through cash registers unnoticed? The truth is uncomfortable. Valuable coins are lost every day because owners never learned what to look for. So what should you do? First, inspect any 2000 Lincoln cent without a mint mark carefully. Look for exceptional luster. Look for sharp, fully struck details in Lincoln's hair and beard. Examine the date for doubling. Check for off-center strikes or unusual planchet characteristics. Use magnification. Handle coins by the edges only. Second, if you suspect you have something unusual, consult a reputable coin dealer or submit the coin to a professional grading service. Authentication is the gateway to serious value. Third, act with awareness. The market rewards informed sellers. Timing matters. Presentation matters. Certification matters. And here is something empowering. You do not need to be a lifelong numismatist to recognize opportunity. You need curiosity. You need discipline. You need the willingness to look where others have not. The next time you see a simple penny, resist the urge to ignore it. Instead, ask yourself, what if? What if this small copper disc is not just spare change, but a key to wealth, a key to legacy, a key to a story that begins with a jar of coins and ends on an auction stage with applause? Because in the end, the 2000 no mint mark Lincoln cent is more than metal. It is a reminder that value often hides in plain sight, that overlooked objects can carry extraordinary potential, that opportunity does not always announce itself with fanfare, sometimes it whispers. And for those who listen, who inspect, who take action, the reward can be life-altering. So before you scroll away, before you dismiss the pennies in your possession as ordinary, consider this: fortunes have been built on knowledge others ignored. Your next step could determine whether that 2000 penny remains 1 cent, a broken bar, or becomes the most important discovery of your financial life. Look closely, because the difference between ordinary and extraordinary may already be in your hands. Take a moment and imagine this. You're standing in your kitchen, early morning light cutting across the counter. In your hand is a penny, a single, ordinary-looking 1978 Lincoln 1 cent coin, copper, worn, maybe pulled from a drawer that's been sitting untouched for years. Now imagine discovering that this very coin, this quiet little piece of American history, could be worth $4.4 million. It sounds impossible, almost absurd. A penny? $4.4 million? But before you dismiss it, consider this: history has a way of hiding treasure in plain sight, and the 1978 Lincoln cent with no mint mark is one of the most misunderstood, overlooked, and potentially explosive coins in modern American numismatics. The 1978 Lincoln cent was struck during the presidency of Jimmy Carter, a time of economic uncertainty and inflation. The coin itself bears the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, first introduced in 1909. On most examples, you'll find either a D for Denver or no mint mark at all, which typically indicates production at the Philadelphia Mint. That absence of a mint mark is not unusual. In fact, Philadelphia cents of that era routinely carried no mint mark, so how could a coin minted by the hundreds of millions possibly command millions of dollars? Here's where the story turns. Within massive production runs, anomalies can occur. Rare die errors, experimental plan case, transitional metallic compositions, striking irregularities so subtle they passed through quality control undetected. Most 1978 no-mint mark cents are worth face value. A few in pristine, uncirculated condition may fetch a modest premium, but a microscopic fraction is so small that many collectors will never encounter one in a lifetime. Possess characteristics that transform them from common copper to once-in-a-generation rarity. Imagine a 1978 no-mint mark cent struck on an experimental alloy plan kit, or one exhibiting a dramatic double die obverse so sharp that Lincoln's profile appears almost ghosted by a second strike. Or a coin mistakenly struck on a leftover-proof plan kit, creating a mirror-like surface with razor-sharp devices never intended for circulation. These are not myths. These are documented phenomena within U.S. mint history. And when one of these extreme anomalies surfaces authenticated, graded, and confirmed, it can ignite a bidding war among elite collectors and investors. Why? Because rarity drives value, but not just rarity. A story drives value. Picture a major auction house unveiling a 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln cent certified at the highest known grade, with a unique mint error never before seen in a series. The catalog description alone becomes legend. Wealthy collectors, hedge fund managers diversifying into tangible assets, and lifelong numismatists all converge. The bidding starts at 6 figures. It escalates, 7 figures, phones ring, online bids surge, a pause, a final hammer drop, $4.4 million. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly examined the coins in your possession, not glanced at them, not dumped them into a machine, examined them? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Treasures are often lost not because they are rare but because they are ignored. The late 1970s were a transitional period in minting technology. The U.S. Mint was experimenting with processes, dies, and quality controls. Subtle inconsistencies occurred, and while most errors are minor, a select few become the stuff of legend. Collectors obsess over strike sharpness, die alignment, luster quality, surface preservation. A 1978 cent graded MS-70 by a top-tier grading service would be nearly flawless, an almost impossible standard for a coin produced in such enormous quantities. And yet, perfection itself can be priceless. There is also the psychology of scarcity. When collectors realize that only 1 or 2 examples of a particular era exist, fear sets in, fear of missing out, fear of never owning a piece of history again. That fear fuels urgency, urgency fuels competition, and competition fuels record-breaking prices. But here's the part most people don't understand. The coin doesn't have to look extraordinary to the untrained eye. It might sit quietly in a drawer labeled spare change. It might be tucked into a desk drawer inherited from a parent or grandparent. It might have passed through thousands of hands without anyone recognizing its significance. Let's pause for a second. If $1 million coin passed through your hands last week, would you have known? That question alone should make you lean closer. The 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln cent represents something powerful, opportunity disguised as ordinary. It reminds us that wealth doesn't always announce itself with gold bars and stock tickers. Sometimes it whispers. Now, before excitement turns into reckless hope, let's ground this in reality. Not every 1978 cent is worth millions. In fact, the overwhelming majority are worth exactly 1 cent. Condition matters, provenance matters, authentication matters. Without professional grading and verification, claims of extraordinary value remain speculation, and this is where discipline separates dreamers from successful sellers. If you believe you have a high-grade or unusual 1978 no mint mark cent, the first step is careful inspection under magnification. Look for doubling in the lettering, especially Liberty and In God We Trust. Examine Lincoln's profile for shadow-like doubling. Check the edges for unusual thickness or metallic color variation. Assess luster. Does it glow with original mint brilliance, or has it dulled over time? Then, and only then, consult a reputable coin grading service, because in the high-stakes world of rare coins, authentication is everything. Now imagine receiving the grading report. The envelope arrives, your heart pounds, you open it slowly. Inside is confirmation of a previously undocumented die variety. Population, one known example. Grade, near perfect. Suddenly, the penny in your hand transforms into leverage, a leverage that could fund retirement, eliminate debt, or create generational wealth. But here's the cliffhanger most people never consider. What if the true value of the 1978 no mint mark cent isn't just in its potential price but in what it represents? It represents awareness, it represents diligence, it represents the willingness to look closer when others look away. In a world where people chase fast money through speculation, the coin collector plays a different game, a slower game, a patient game. And patience, over time, compounds into extraordinary opportunity. Let's inject a bit of humor for a moment. How many of us have tossed pennies into fountains, wishing for wealth? Ironically, the coin you wish with might be the very one capable of granting it if only you had looked first. Strange how that works, isn't it? The market for rare coins continues to evolve. Tangible assets have gained renewed attention as investors seek alternatives to volatile markets. High net worth individuals increasingly view exceptional coins as portable stores of value, artifacts that combine history, artistry, and scarcity. When a coin like a unique 1978 no mint mark Lincoln cent achieves a multi-million-dollar valuation, it's not merely about copper, it's about narrative. It's about exclusivity. It's about owning something no one else can. And exclusivity has always commanded a premium. If you're between 30 and 65, living in the United States, perhaps you've accumulated jars of change over decades. Maybe inherited collections sit boxed in closets. The difference between ordinary and extraordinary often lies in knowledge. Fear can be a powerful motivator. Fear of missing out, fear of discarding something valuable. But fear alone isn't enough. Action must follow. Set aside an evening. Pour your pennies onto a clean table. Separate the 1978 no mint mark examples. Study them carefully. Handle them by the edges. Use proper lighting. Treat each coin as though it could change your life, because statistically, one day, someone's will. And what if that someone is you? The story of the 1978 no mint mark Lincoln cent is still being written. Every discovery adds a new chapter. Every auction result reshapes expectations. Every authenticated rarity sends a ripple through the collecting community. Somewhere right now, perhaps in a small town, a jar is being opened, a coin is being examined under magnification for the very first time, a collector's breath catches, a subtle detail emerges, a phone call is made, a submission form is filled out. The journey from 1 cent to $4.4 million does not happen overnight. It begins with curiosity, it continues with education, it culminates in decisive action. So the next time you encounter a 1978 Lincoln cent with no mint mark, don't dismiss it as pocket change. See it as possibility. See it as a reminder that wealth sometimes hides in the smallest denominations. And remember this, history has already proven that extraordinary value can reside in ordinary metal. The only question left is whether you will recognize it when it appears in your hand, because somewhere out there, perhaps closer than you think, a single copper coin waits to rewrite someone's financial story forever. What if the next time you reach into a jar of loose change, The smallest coin in your hand holds a secret powerful enough to change your financial future. Not a lottery ticket, not a stock tip, a single 1979 Lincoln cent. A coin so ordinary on the surface that millions of Americans have overlooked it for decades as a broken bar, yet under the right conditions, with the right characteristics, it can become a life-altering discovery. Before you dismiss that idea, consider this: fortunes in the coin market are not created by age alone, they are created by rarity, by error, by condition, and by the relentless demand of collectors who are willing to pay extraordinary premiums for the right piece at the right time. And in the case of the 1979 penny, the story is far more nuanced and far more exciting than most people realize. In 1979, the United States was facing inflation, gas shortages, and economic uncertainty. At the same time, the Denver Mint was striking billions of Lincoln cents to keep commerce moving. These coins carried the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, a design that had already become one of the most recognized images in American history. The D Mint mark beneath the date signified production at the Denver Mint, a facility known for massive output and consistency. And that's where the first misconception begins. Because billions were produced, most 1979 pennies are common, in circulated condition. They are typically worth 1 cent. In uncirculated rolls, they may command modest premiums. A pristine, high-grade example graded MS-67 or above by a major third-party grading service might bring hundreds, occasionally over $1,000 if demand surges. Not millions. So where does the million-dollar dream come from? It comes from the tiny fraction of coins that define normal production standards. In the world of numismatics, value is born from deviation, a doubled die, a dramatic off-center strike, a wrong planchet error, a transitional metal anomaly. These are the anomalies that transform pocket change into auction headlines. Imagine a 1979 struck on an incorrect metal planchet as something never meant for that denomination. Imagine a dramatic double die obverse where Lincoln's features and lettering visibly duplicate. Imagine a pristine specimen, perfectly preserved for decades, discovered at just the right moment when high-end collectors are competing aggressively. Now ask yourself, how many people carefully examine their pennies under magnification? Very few. That gap between what exists and what is noticed is where opportunity lies. But let's ground this in reality, because serious collectors and serious sellers operate on facts, not fantasy. As of today, there is no verified public sale of a 1979 Lincoln cent for $4 million, no major auction record, no certified transaction. If someone tells you a regular 1979 penny is automatically worth millions, they are either misinformed or selling you a dream. However, a broken bar, and this is important, a broken bar rare coins across U.S. history have sold for hundreds of thousands and even millions of dollars. The market has proven that when rarity, condition, and demand collide, price ceilings can shatter. So the real question becomes, what separates the penny in your drawer from the penny in a showcase? Condition is everything. Collectors pay exponentially more for coins that are untouched by circulation. A 1979 cent with blazing red luster, no contact marks, razor-sharp strike, and flawless surfaces can be worth dramatically more than one that has lived in a jar for decades. Let's pause for a moment. If you have old pennies at home, when was the last time you truly examined them? Not glanced at them, examined them. Here's where the excitement builds. There are documented varieties within the broader Lincoln cent series that were overlooked for years before being recognized. Subtle doubling, die cracks, repunched mint marks in earlier decades. Minor shifts that most eyes would never detect. In some cases, collectors unknowingly spent rare coins because no one told them what to look for. And that's the fear factor. How many valuable coins have passed through your hands without you knowing? How many opportunities were missed simply because no one slowed down long enough to inspect the 1-cent coin? The 1979D is part of the copper-plated zinc era, introduced in the early 1980s, but transitional metal anomalies can sometimes create incredible value. Weight matters. A standard 1979D cent should weigh 3.11 grams. If you encounter one that weighs significantly more or less without damage, that anomaly alone justifies professional evaluation. Now imagine discovering a mint error so dramatic that major auction houses compete to feature it. Imagine a certified, unique specimen that becomes the finest known example. In the rarest scenarios across all U.S. coinage, unique pieces have achieved multi-million-dollar valuations because they represent something no one else can own. That is where the idea of a $4 million penny lives not in the ordinary, but in the extraordinary, and extraordinary requires verification. If you believe you have a high-grade or unusual 1979D penny, the next step is not listing it online with a bold price tag. The next step is authentication. Professional grading services provide credibility. Without certification, even a genuinely rare coin will struggle to command elite prices. Let me ask you something that might sound humorous but is absolutely serious. When was the last time you used a magnifying glass for anything other than reading fine print? Because that simple tool can separate casual curiosity from serious opportunity. Collectors in the 30 to 65 age range often sit on inherited collections, old bank rolls, forgotten coin albums. Many are unaware that condition-based grading can transform a 1-cent coin into a 4-figure asset, not because it's old, but because it's perfect, and perfection is rare. Here's where urgency enters the picture. The coin market is cyclical. Demand rises and falls. Economic uncertainty often pushes investors toward tangible assets. When confidence in paper assets declines, collectibles with verified scarcity can surge. Timing matters. If you uncover something exceptional, understanding market momentum is critical. But caution matters just as much. Online marketplaces are filled with exaggerated listings claiming ordinary 1979D pennies are worth thousands or millions. Asking price is not selling price. A coin listed for $10,000 means nothing unless it actually sells for $10,000. Serious wealth in numismatics is built on documented transactions. Now imagine a scenario. You carefully sort through a drawer of old pennies. You separate the 1979D coins. You examine them under magnification. You weigh them precisely. One coin looks sharper than the rest. Brilliant red. No visible wear. Strong strike. You send it for grading. Weeks later, the result returns. A near top population grade. Suddenly, that penny is no longer just 1 cent. It is a competitive registry piece. Collectors who build top-ranked sets will pay premiums for the finest examples. Auctions create bidding wars. Prices climb not because of hype but because of scarcity at the highest grade. And while $4 million remains an extreme theoretical ceiling reserved for unique, historic rarities, even a 5-figure or 6-figure sale can be transformational. The key is discernment. Not every coin is treasure, but every coin deserves inspection before dismissal. There is something psychologically powerful about the idea that immense value can hide in plain sight. It reminds us that opportunity often looks ordinary before it is understood. The 1979D penny teaches that lesson beautifully. It also teaches patience. If you rush to sell without research, you'll leave money on the table. If you ignore authentication, buyers hesitate. If you believe every internet rumor, you risk disappointment. But if you approach the process methodically, education, verification, timing, you position yourself intelligently, and intelligence compounds. So here is the balanced truth. A typical 1979D Lincoln cent is worth face value. A high-grade certified example can be worth hundreds or more. A rare or extraordinary specimen could command dramatically higher premiums, but no verified record confirms a standard 1979D penny selling for $4 million. The dream of millions exists in the realm of ultra-rare mint errors and unique discoveries across U.S. coinage history and not in everyday circulation pieces. Yet that should not discourage you, because the difference between 1 cent and life-changing money has happened before in the numismatic world. It happens when knowledge meets vigilance. Tonight, when you pass by that drawer of old coins, you will see it differently. Not as spare change, but as unexamined potential. And maybe you'll smile at the irony that the smallest denomination in American currency can spark the largest curiosity. Will you find a $4 million penny? The odds are slim. Will you find something more valuable than 1 cent? Possibly, and that possibility grounded in reality, guided by research, driven by patience is where true wealth begins. Because sometimes the greatest opportunity isn't the coin itself, it's the decision to finally look. It looks like an ordinary penny, copper-colored, lightweight, the kind you've ignored 1,000 times at the bottom of a drawer, in your car's cup holder, or slipping between couch cushions. But what if I told you that one specific version of the 1982 mint Mark Lincoln penny has been valued at up to $3.5 million? Not a typo, not a fantasy, a single cent that could change your entire financial future. Before you dismiss it as internet hype, stay with me, because the story of the 1982 Denver Lincoln cent is not just about money. It's about a rare moment in American minting history, a microscopic detail most people miss, and a life-changing discovery that could already be sitting in your home. In 1982, something historic happened at the United States Mint. For decades, the Lincoln cent had been struck primarily in copper, but rising metal prices forced the mint to change the composition mid-year. That means in 1982, pennies were made in both bronze and zinc-plated steel cores. Same year, same design, different metals, and that transition created confusion, a broken bar and opportunity. At the Denver Mint, marked by a small d under the date on the iconic Lincoln cent designed by Victor David Brenner, multiple variations were struck: large date, small date, copper, zinc. It sounds technical, maybe even boring. But hidden in that complexity is one of the most explosive rarities in modern American coinage. Now here is where things get serious. Most 1982D small date pennies were struck in zinc. That was the new standard. Copper was supposed to be phased out, but evidence has surfaced that at least one 1982D small date penny was mistakenly struck on a copper plankette, a transitional error. A coin that technically should not exist. And when a coin should not exist, collectors pay attention. Imagine the tension inside the mint that year: machines switching metals, old copper blanks still in supply bins, presses running around the clock. In that environment, it takes only one copper plankette left behind to create a multi-million-dollar anomaly. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you weighed your pennies? Because that is the first secret. A standard 1982 zinc penny weighs about 2.5 grams. A copper version weighs 3.11 grams, less than a gram difference, almost invisible to the eye. But on a digital scale, it's the difference between pocket change and generational wealth. Pause for a second and imagine this. You dump out a drawer of old pennies tonight. You separate the 1982 coins. You find a Denver Mint mark. You check the date style. It's small. Your heart starts to race. You place it on a scale. 3.11 grams. What would that moment feel like? Excitement, disbelief, fear that it might not be real, and then the overwhelming realization that your life may have just shifted forever. Now, let's be clear. Not every 1982D penny is rare. In fact, billions were produced. The vast majority are worth exactly 1 cent. But the transitional small-date copper version? That's a unicorn in the numismatic world. Collectors chase rarity, investors chase scarcity. And when both collide, prices explode. In recent years, authenticated examples of rare transitional era coins have crossed auction blocks for staggering amounts. We're not talking about a few $1,000s. We're talking about 6 figures, 7 figures, and in private collector circles, estimates for a confirmed 1982D small date copper cent in pristine condition have soared into the multi-million-dollar range, with valuations whispered as high as $3.5 million. Why so high? Because it represents a mistake in a system designed for precision. It represents a glitch in history, and there may only be one known example confirmed by professional grading services. Think about that. 1. That's rarer than many famous paintings, rarer than some vintage Ferraris. And it was handed out in pocket change. Here's the twist that keeps collectors awake at night. What if more are out there? Coins travel, they circulate, they get stored in jars, boxes, old piggy banks, they get forgotten in estate sales and attic trunks. Most people never check, most people never weigh them, most people assume a penny is just a penny. That assumption is expensive. There's a quiet psychology behind coin collecting. It taps into treasure hunting, into the childhood thrill of discovery. But this isn't fantasy. This is documented reality. Transitional errors have been found decades later. Ordinary people have uncovered extraordinary values simply because they looked closer than everyone else. And here's where urgency comes in. Every year, millions of pennies are melted, lost, or discarded. Every year, potential rarities disappear. The window of opportunity narrows. The longer these coins circulate unnoticed, the greater the risk they vanish forever. If you are between 30 and 65, if you've ever inherited coins from parents or grandparents, if you've got jars sitting untouched, this is your moment to pay attention. Now let's talk about identification in more depth, because details matter. First, look for the year 1982. Obvious, yes, but precision is everything. Second, confirm the DEM mint mark beneath the date, indicating it was struck at the Denver Mint. Third, examine the date style. The small date variety has distinct features. The 2 has a sharper curve, the 8 appears more delicate, and the overall spacing is tighter compared to the large date. And finally, the most critical step, weight. 3.11 grams signals copper. If you find a 1982D small date penny weighing 3.11 grams, you may be holding something extraordinary. But do not rush to celebrate just yet. Authentication is key. Professional grading services use metallurgical testing, high-resolution imaging, and expert analysis to confirm composition and legitimacy. Counterfeits exist. Altered coins exist. The market rewards verification. Let me inject a little humor here. If your cousin says he can eyeball copper content from across the room, maybe thank him politely a broken bar and still get it tested. Because when millions are potentially at stake, guessing is not a strategy. The deeper reason this coin commands such staggering attention is not just rarity. It's narrative. Collectors don't just buy metal, they buy stories. And the 1982 transition year tells a powerful story about economic pressure, rising copper prices, and a pivotal shift in American minting history. Owning the rarest terror from that transition is like owning a physical chapter of American financial evolution. Now imagine the lifestyle shift that $3.5 million represents. Mortgage paid off, retirement secured, investments diversified, travel without constraint, financial stress evaporated. It sounds dramatic, but history has shown that rare coins have transformed lives before. At the same time, let's ground this in reality. The odds are slim, extremely slim, but slim is not zero, and the only guaranteed way to miss the opportunity is to never look. Fear can paralyze. What if I don't find one? But fear can also motivate. What if I do? There's a powerful psychological shift when you realize value can hide in plain sight. It changes how you see everyday objects. It reminds you that wealth isn't always flashy. Sometimes it's quiet, sometimes it's copper-colored and overlooked, And here's the cliffhanger that keeps this story alive. Experts continue to debate whether additional 1982D small date copper cents exist undiscovered. Mint records from that year are complex. Production transitions were not perfectly documented at the micro level. That uncertainty fuels speculation. Speculation fuels demand. Demand fuels price. So where does that leave you? It leaves you with a choice. Ignore the possibility, or investigate it. Spend one evening sorting and weighing. Invest in a precise digital scale. Learn the difference between large and small date. Consult reputable grading services if you find something promising. Because here's the truth. Opportunity rarely announces itself with fireworks. It whispers. It hides in coin jars and old coffee cans. It waits for someone patient enough to notice. And if you're watching this right now, maybe you're exactly the kind of person who does. Imagine the call from the grading service. Confirmation, authentication, headlines, auction houses competing, collectors worldwide bidding, all from 1 cent. The 1982D Lincoln penny is more than metal. It's a reminder that value is not always obvious, that history leaves behind anomalies, that diligence can reward the observant. So tonight, before you scroll past, before you dismiss it as improbable, ask yourself one simple question: what's in your change jar? Because somewhere, perhaps in a forgotten corner of America, a small date 1982D copper penny may still be waiting to be discovered. And the next life changed by Ida Broken Bar could be yours.